Hello, welcome to Box Board. Now tonight we are going to look at an introductory guide to Tales from the Loop for beginners to RPGs. So we're going to do three things. We're going to look at what an RPG is, what Tales from the Loop is all about, and then how you play the game on a very basic level. And we might chuck in a little bit about character sheets as well while we're at it. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, and welcome to Box Board. So, what is a role-playing game? Well, essentially, what a role-playing game is a conversation that you have with some friends to tell a story. And it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in this story, you develop the story together collaboratively as you go along, and it's set within a particular framework and a set of rules. I'm going to nick some ideas out of the book for this game, which is this one. And one of the things that they do really well is they tell you a bit about this. So, typical story, you'll need the paper, some pens, and at least 10 six-sided dice, or a dice roller. An online dice roller works really well. Everybody picks out a character. Everybody creates a character, and they're going to be called a kid, and they will be of a type. So they're the person you're going to play in the story. Now, as you play through the game, you will choose what your kid would do, what they will do, what they will say, and you'll tell everybody else what they say and what they do, and what they think and what they feel. You could pretend to be the kid, like an actor in a movie or a play. It's usually easier if you refer to them as me or I, but you think in your head you're kind of describing what they're going to do. So it's kind of somewhere between. For most people, they play it somewhere between themselves and acting. It's something like that. One of the players is going to be a games master. They are in charge of kind of keeping everybody moving in a direction. They will control all the creatures, machines, and they will play everybody except the kids. So any other characters in the game. They will describe anything else that comes up in the game. So they'll describe smells and sights and sounds. And they basically cut between different scenes. So if you look on it as a movie, they are like a bit like a director almost. The games master won't decide what will happen in the story. We decide that together. They will guide it a little bit at times, but they will present situations to the kids, and the kids will decide what to do. And one of the great things about role-playing games is, as a GM or games master, you can do the same session with 5 different groups and get 5 completely different sort of experiences. It's brilliant. The GM will have a script called a mystery in this game. Different games call it different things, but effectively in this one it's a mystery. That'll tell them locations, non-player characters that are going to turn up, situations that will arise. It's only a guide, and to be honest with you, it's a bit of a given that we're going to go off-piste at some point. Players and GM then take turns in telling bits of the story, and we work together on what the characters are doing, what the place is like that they're doing it in. Sometimes situations arise whenever they have to do something very difficult. In those situations, you roll some dice and let chance determine whether you succeed or fail. The one thing I would say is, the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. If you come into it and just throw yourself into it and just have a laugh, you will really enjoy it. If you sort of sit back, you'll enjoy it a bit, but you won't get as much out of it. So whenever you're playing in a role-playing session, my advice would be jump in with both feet, have a laugh. In this world, because it's set in the 80s, it never was. It's actually, dress up a bit. It'll help you to feel a bit in character. And you don't have to put on silly voices. Some GMs do, some GMs don't. But really just enjoy it and just run with it. There are, as far as rolling dice go, let's go through the world of the Loop first. The Loop is a weird and wonderful world. So basically, it's set in the 80s that never was. If we were playing things from the Fluff session, it would be the 90s that never was. So it's kind of that late 80s, mid to late 80s, mid to early 90s is the period of time that these two games really cover, in my head at least. Everything about youth culture, you play kids, so you play in Tales from the Loop, you're playing younger teenagers, and Things from the Flood, you're playing older teenagers. So you can actually take a character all the way through. And that colours the way you see the world a little bit. So you tend to not see the big picture stuff, but you do see stuff in media. The thing about the world that you inhabit is it is very like our world, in the sense that all the youth culture is virtually identical. The media is the same. So the music is, you still get the 80s music, you still get the 80s movies, you still get the games, you still got all the nostalgia of the 80s. But it's a little bit different because technology has taken a different turn. Technology is different. As you can see in the picture, this is from where the universe comes from. It's actually from an artist called Simon Stallenhag, who's based in Sweden, a Swedish artist actually. And he did some fantastic artwork based in this universe and drew up a whole world around that artwork. And you can see in this one, there's a robot over here. And this robot is much more futuristic than what was about in the 1980s. And it's got much more autonomy. Also, there's things like magnetrains, which are kind of like maglevs without track that transport things around the world. Technology's different. It's more advanced in many ways. And in the middle of that world, there's this thing called the Loop. And the Loop is kind of like CERN. So it's that sort of idea. It's a research facility where they are carrying out strange experiments around physics, and weird things happen around the Loop. And this brings us to a bit about the Tales from the Loop game. And I'm just going to read you out. There are a number of principles of the Loop highlighted in the book. There's 6 of them. The first is, your hometown is full of strange and fantastic things. So fusion, particle accelerators, and magnetrain were discovered in the 1950s. So in this universe, there are huge transport vessels flying, there are cyborgs that are robots that think, and scientists can create time portals by accident and replace people's identities. Strange beasts have been known to roam the landscape. And it is an odd place. The second principle is, everyday life is still dull and is still unforgiving. There are still bullies. There are still parents who quarrel. There is still a big brother who really annoys you. Adults are out of reach and out of touch. You are on your own as a kid. So this is a period of time where kids ran wild, and you're going to be able to do that. And the fourth principle is, the land of the Loop is dangerous. You can get hurt, but you will not die. Bad things can happen to you, but you will not die. You can end up locked up, mocked, displaced, robbed, or broken-hearted, but you won't die. Number 5, the game is played scene by scene, so it's a bit like a movie. Number 6, the world is described together, collaboratively. It's not that the GM makes everything happen, it's that we all describe this world. So at different points, you'll get opportunities to describe what's happening in your day at the start of it. So it really helps to sort of have a little bit of daydream of what your character's going to be like. So what kind of, what's their backstory? Are the parents fighting? Is the world, is there problems at home? Have they got a brilliant life? Have they got a dog that they love? All these random things, because you'll get chances to throw them in and they add colour and texture to the story. The mechanics of the game are quite interesting, and what I want to do is next, I'm going to look at those, and I'm just going to cut so I can move my camera around a little bit. So this is a character sheet, and I haven't filled it in, but it covers quite a few bits and pieces. Now, it's not the best quality video, but you can sort of see the idea, and you'll get one of these before the game. So you've got a name, and you choose the name of your character. You've got type, in other words, are they a rocker, weirdo, popular kid, those kind of types. What their age is, that'll be decided beforehand because it has some implications for the bits at the side. What their drive is, and that's quite a useful one to know, actually, because it gives you an idea of how you're going to have this character behave. What their anger is really comes in more whenever you're playing a campaign. The luck points comes in. Luck points effectively give you a re-roll if you need it, but different characters get more or less than dependent on their age. What their problem is, which is quite a good thing for role playing, is what do you want? What problem have they got? And it's often a signal to a GM that this is an area I want you to investigate. Pride is this thing that you're proud of that allows you to add some extra dice. And we'll talk a wee bit more about that later. But you have to explain how that kicks in. And then the description of your character and favourite song, those are really just to add flavour. The other things here, relationships, can be quite good, but that tends to be decided in a session as the players meet. Items, your iconic item is a good one to know beforehand and identify, and that's something that you think that you can use, and it gives you 2 dice as a bonus, so you can use 2 dice extra whenever you do rolls, which is quite useful. You can pick up other items as you go through each mystery, so they can be quite useful as well. Hideout won't really feature in one shot, but will feature in a campaign, and this is somewhere that you can go to recover conditions. And then over here is really the meat and drink of the game in a lot of ways. So you've got attributes. Now, attributes, you've got body, tech, heart, and mind. Physical ability with technology, emotional intelligence, and sort of your ability to process. And these go from 1 to 5. Each number represents a dice that you roll. So if you have got 5 dice, you roll. If you've got 5 there, you roll 5 6-sided dice. Conditions are the things that can happen to you that can go wrong, and basically they take dice off you. And eventually, if all of those are filled in and one more thing happens, you're broken and you're out of the game. Doesn't happen very often in this game, I have to say. But it can happen. Skills. Now these are basically, they go between 1 and 3, and they depend largely on your archetype, on your type. Sorry. So different types get different bonuses. Every type has got 3 skills that they can prioritize, and they can go up to 3, and number 3. Other skills can only go up to 1. So, but let's go through them. So sneak, which force and move, they've all got body behind them. And what that means is that whenever you roll something that involves those skills, you add the number that's here, which is between 1 and 3. And if it's blank, it's nothing, to the attribute of body. So whatever it is up here for body. So say you had 5 up here for body, and you had a force of 2, and you needed to push a door open, and it was quite you would roll 7 dice, because 5 dice plus 2 dice. If it was quite an easy door to wedge open, you'd only need 1 6. If it's a harder door, you need 2, and if it's a really difficult door, you'd need 3. Now, again, 3 6s out of 7 is quite hard. So at that point, you might want somebody to help you, to give you an extra dice. You might want to use your pride to give you extra dice. You might want to use a luck point to re-roll if you fail. You might want to use iconic items. So you can do things to give you more and more dice to try and roll. Tinker, program, and calculate are all tech. And it's actually, I find that whenever I'm playing, if I look at this, it's quite helpful. And I look at this first. I say, what's the skill I'm going to use? And then I go up. So it's whatever the number is. If I'm going to use calculate, I'm going to be doing some maths. I've got to calculate a 1. Then I'll go up to tech. And I've got to take a 2. I'm going to be rolling 3 dice. Okay, might not be able to do it, but it might be worth a shot. And then we've got contact, charm, and lead, and these are all related to heart. We'll talk about lead a little bit later on. Investigate, comprehend, and empathize, and they all relate to the mind. And we'll talk about empathize a little bit later on. But essentially, what you do is you add the number at the end of this to whatever the attribute is that goes with it up here to give you the number of dice you're going to roll. And then you can also use items and other things to boost the number of dice you roll. And we'll talk a little bit about those, but also I'll guide you as well, or your GM will guide you whenever you're playing. So having gone through the character sheet, that's quite a lot of actually what we have to do. And there'll be occasionally or how to play is you roll these dice according to your attribute plus your skill, and you're trying to get a 6. And if you get a 6, you've got a success. Now, for some very hard tasks, you have to get 2 6s, and really hard tasks, you have to get 3. But that'll be spelled out to you. Now, that's a lot of dice to get roll 6s, so there must be other ways to help yourself as well as items, and there are. One of the things you can do is you can help another character. You have to explain how you're going to do that, and that'll mean that there's an extra dice in the pool to roll. So, you know, you might, if you're trying to push a door, that's an easy one. There's one person who's at the front pushing, and then somebody else gives an extra shove. They add an extra dice. Another thing you can do is you can use a luck point. You will get so many luck points in the game, depending on your age. And once they're used, they're used. But what you can use them for is if you fail a roll, you can use your luck point and do a re-roll of that roll. And that's a really effective strategy sometimes, and it can be really helpful. Now, let me just check. Some skills will let you ask questions of the GM. The GM has to answer them truthfully with as much detail as possible. So you'll get a very straightforward answer, but they'll answer the question you ask, not the question you meant to ask. So be careful about that whenever you do it. You can also, I'm trying to remember, things like pride. Once per mystery, you can use your pride to give you 1 automatic success, to give you 1 automatic 6. You have to explain how, and you have to, that comes in, how that's going to be used. And then it becomes part of the story. And you only do it once per mystery, once per session. And that's pretty much the way that you can improve your chances of getting those 6s. Now, there is one other thing where there's extended trouble, but the GM will guide you through that. And it's quite, it's an easy thing. It's basically, you've got to get so many 6s as a group in a certain period, in a certain number of rolls. And that's what it boils down to. And you've got to explain what you're trying to do at the same time. Some particular skills that might be useful to know about what they do, because they're a little bit different, are things like, let me see if I can find it, lead. So with lead, if you've got time with other kids, you can help them, you can inspire them for a difficult situation. So what you have to do is you have to roll and try to get 6. And if you get, and you can then, in an upcoming scene, help that person then gets a bonus. So, but only if they do what you say. So only if they follow your direction. So if you get 1 success whenever you lead, they will get 2 dice. If you get 2 successes, they get 4 extra dice. And you get 3 successes, they get 6 extra dice. So you can boost somebody's chances by spending some time and leading them, but you can only do that 1 person before each scene. So you've got to, and you don't know what the scene is that's coming up, so you need to think how you're going to use that. Empathize is quite an interesting one as well. So empathize basically allows you to, if you've got time to study a person or a creature or or a robot, you can start to spot out what are their weak spots, how can you make them do something, what do they feel, what do they want, what will they do, and are they lying? And you can ask those questions. You can ask 2 of those questions if you get success. If you ask, if you get 2 successes, you then get to ask an extra question and take a +1 die on a roll whenever you use that information. So you actually get an extra die that way, which is quite useful. And that empathize is a really nice one. If it comes up, I'll mention it in a bit. But if you know that's on your character sheet, it's going to be one to be worth being aware of, because it's quite a useful skill, as is lead, actually, because it boosts the party a little bit. You will definitely have a laugh in this. Don't worry too much about the rules. One of the nice things about this game system, is it's all about the world, and the rules kind of help us to get there. They are not the be-all and end-all. It's not a crunchy system. It's a very beginner-friendly system. It's basically how to get some dice, and as many dice as you can, and roll as many 6s as you can, and that's it. And actually, you will have. It's very easy to get bogged down into those silly little things like, oh, hang on, what's empathize do? Don't worry, your GM will guide you. Your GM will help you. Any GM worth their salt is going to help you along the way. And actually, I guarantee you will enjoy it. It's one of the. Some people love it. Some people think that was a good night. But some people absolutely adore it. And it's such a weird world. So that is our introduction to Tales from the Loop. It's a story, and we're going to tell it together. That's what Tales from the Loop RPG is. Tales from the Loop itself is a bit more upbeat and, chirpy and young. If you like it a little bit darker, go for Things from the Flood. Things from the Flood is awesome. It's a little bit richer. It's a little bit deeper as a game, and is definitely a lot darker. But it is awesome. And yeah, Tales from the Loop, more sort of upbeat. You're young teenagers and you can't die. Things from the Flood, you can die. So it's a much darker game, but it's very good. Okay, that's me. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching.